Frankie, the transfer window's finally shut. We got beat by Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. However, the reaction generally was quite positive despite the defeat. But shall we start with the actual transfer business or lack of transfer business, depending on your thoughts? But in came Ferguson and in came James Ward-Prowse. But let's speak about the window overall. What did you make of it? Were you content with the business done or are we lacking?
It's hard to be content because nothing really happened, did it? I get the frustration, and I also get people being quite calm about it. In fact, I think a lot of people, a lot of teams approached it in the same way. There weren't much business done. I had a chat to an Arsenal fan, and some of his fans were getting really frustrated, saying we needed, to boost the attack a little bit, and if we're going to make a push. But he sort of, I think, saw it in the same way. Is it really on? Can you really catch Liverpool? And, do you go and rush now and spend money that would be better spent in the summer? And I think we're in the same sort of scenario. We're not going to catch the European places. We continue with this almost extra long pre-season, which our managers don't tend to have because we always wait till the last minute. So the fact we've made an early decision for a change means that he's got this sort of run in front of him to really highlight and assess what he wants. And he's got his right-hand man in upstairs now having a look and doing his analysis. So, we're just sort of biding our time, I think. And maybe while we all might feel a little bit of frustration now, come the summer when they show us what they've been planning, it might all feel all good, and we might look at it and go, "Well, that was well worth waiting for." So fingers crossed.
Oh, obviously, we only really know in the summer if it is a plan. So, how are you feeling at the minute? Do you think it is that a strategy from the club, or do you think it's a failure to get people in? Because which one are you seeing it at?
I mean, our club and strategy is quite a big thing to link together. We don't tend to have too much of that. So I'm not going to call it a strategy, but I do understand that we had a big change just before the window. We had a change at sort of director of football level and those that the powers that be were involved in transfers. And as soon as that happened, you immediately went to, we're not going to do any business because, that's just not going to happen. We did obviously bring in Evan Ferguson, and time will tell on that one as to whether or not he can reignite a little bit of his previous form and give us something from now until the end of the season. Look, it is frustrating. I'm sure we're going to go into a little bit about the Chelsea game. And my only frustration with regards to actually not just Chelsea, but all of the matches that Graham Potter has had for us so far is the fact that I don't think he's got all the tools he needs to do the best job that he can do. There's no question we can see that he's doing some really good things, and we look like we've got a system and we've got a shape and we've got a bit of a plan in each game, which is really good to see. But he would definitely benefit from some fresh legs in certain areas and new faces in positions that we've always, struggled with and had problems with. So, look, I would have loved to have seen him get some new players and everything else. But again, I'm not sure it was the right time, Joe. I think this has all made sense, put it that way.
What about Evan Ferguson then? Obviously, a lot of people unhappy with the lack of option to buy in there. Others, and I'm in the others camp, which they're fine with the deal as it is. Where do you sit on this one?
Well, I guess I think it would show that maybe it's either or, isn't it? The club or Potter's unconvinced whether it's the right option to sign him or not. I know an option gives you that to some degree, but again, they'd be silly to do that because, like you've said in previous videos, if he comes in and hits the ground running, then that price tag shoots up. So why would they do that? So I actually think you summarised it really well. Again, while I think what we did in the window made sense, I also think what's the arrangement with this has made sense as well. I do. I think it's and would I be comfortable with? Certainly, we didn't want an obligation because he could break down and there could be issues and whatever else. So that wouldn't make sense. And I'm not convinced that he is the right man moving forward. It's, he might come in, get very familiar with the club. Similar to that Andy Carroll situation, we might be at the end of the season standing there singing, Evan Ferguson, we want you to stay. And maybe it isn't quite how we envisioned it and we might end up paying a little bit more for it. But if he is looking like that player, maybe that's okay. Look, if it's not what for us, and then the Potter's right-hand man has sort of gone and highlighted better options for us, and we can move on from him and go and get the long-term striker solution that we're all so desperate for, because we never seem to get it quite right, then that works out as well. So, look, I'm being really on the fence here with everything that I'm saying about everything we've discussed so far. But
I do you know something? There's a couple of phrases in that's used, and I hear it and see it used in like YouTube's sphere, if you like, because that's where I'm focused. And I think on the fence is one of those phrases that annoy me, because I think it's okay to be undecided. I think on the fence is when you refuse to give an opinion. To me, that on the fence to me is when you sit there and go, I'm not going to speak about it. That is on the fence. But if you actually can see the pros and cons of something, and it means you're in the middle, I see it as balanced and or undecided rather than on the fence. The other phrase that annoys me is say it as it is. I think everybody does. Just because someone doesn't agree with your opinion doesn't mean they're not saying it as it is. They just have a different opinion to you. You're right. Anyway. But so I don't think you are sitting on the fence, Frankie. I think you're just in the middle. You can see pros and you can see cons, and overall, you're quite neutral on it. It's a bit like if you think a player had a good first half and a bad second half. So overall, you're going to give him a 5 out of 10. You're on the fence. You're in the middle because he's had a good and bad. I'll speak about Ferguson. I'm not speaking about the window as a whole, because I'm going to do a video about it either tomorrow or Friday, because we've got no game this weekend. So we're going to have to come up with some content, right? So I'll do a window overall video, but I'm not going to discuss Evan Ferguson in it because I've already done it. But what I will add to the Evan Ferguson deal is I think the best option for the club would have been to have an option to buy in there. The second best deal for the club would be to have a straight loan. And the worst option would have been to have an obligation. So it's not the best deal for the club, but certainly not the worst either. And I think since we've signed Evan Ferguson, we've got given new news, which I think might explain the Evan Ferguson deal a little bit, which is Somerville being injured for 2 months now. So that happened in training last week. The club did very well to keep that quiet. But when negotiating with Brighton, the club knew Somerville's out for 2 months. So when we came into the January transfer window, we needed a new striker. Fulkrug got injured. We got desperate for a new striker. I would argue that Somerville getting injured might have increased how much we needed a new striker. It was almost like get one in at all costs, because we've just lost someone for 2 months. And, that's taken us into April. We're closer to the end of the season than we are the middle of the season at that point. So I don't know if maybe the club just felt we have to get Evan Ferguson in now and get this deal done before Brighton or anyone else finds out about the Somerville injury. And listen, I'm not suggesting Ferguson is a direct replacement for Somerville. I'm not. But what Ferguson can do is come in and take the striker role. Bowen can then drop back or cover for Somerville, whatever. It's another option in the squad. It's another attacking player in. And I think I'm okay with it, but that's just because I don't want to sign Evan Ferguson. And I can understand why people are frustrated at the lack of option to buy. But even if it was set at 40 million, and I can't see it being set at lower than that, I still wouldn't want to sign him in the summer. Even if he stayed fit all season and scored 3-4 goals and looked really good, I'd still think there's better options out there for that price tag. And I think what the club have done is just bought themselves time. Right, that's it, sorted now. The window's closed. We've now got 3-4 months to go and identify the perfect striker for Graham Potter's system. So I'm on board with it. One person coming back to West Ham, Frankie, was James Ward-Prowse. Did you have much of a reaction to this, or is it a shrug of the shoulder and it's not too big a deal? On the fence again?
No, I'm not. I actually quite like it. My reasons why I quite like it, and it will probably wind a few people up, because between the pair of them, one's now a cult hero, and one of them is someone who's given a lot for this football club. But we've had some not very good central midfield partnerships over the last few seasons, and the worst that I've seen is Souček and Irving. So the fact that Ward-Prowse can come back in and give us an alternative to that, I'm very happy about.
I think Souček and Ward-Prowse is one of the worst midfield pairs.
Do you know what? And it probably was until what I saw against Chelsea. I thought it was terrible. I really didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. It annoyed me. I didn't like it. I wasn't happy with it.
What was the reasons for that?
I just felt that we talk about a lack of, and do you know what, Gio? I'll even go as far as this. People know that I've not been the biggest fan of Guido Rodriguez. I was screaming for him to come on the pitch in the end, screaming on that 70th. Yeah, that 70th minute when, or was it just before then? You know, when Chelsea made their first 2 subs.
Yeah,
the game started to change.
Yeah,
it had already started to change.
Yeah.
And we looked like we were getting leggy. It looked like we were losing control of the midfield. And it was like the inevitable's coming. They then get their goal. How it comes about, are fully in agreement that it should never have been allowed. And the tackle on Bowen was, you know, that should have just been a free kick and it should have been whatever. And VAR should have stepped in. So I can agree with that. But it did come and it was coming. And at that point in time, I really felt that a change needed to be made. And if there was one change that I would probably have done, it would have been Irving for Rodriguez.
I actually agree with a lot of what you just said there. My initial reaction, because I thought they did all right on Monday night, the pair of them individually and as a partnership, I thought they looked all right. Now, I wouldn't have it against Brentford because I think we need more from the midfield pairing in terms of possession and getting on the ball and moving the ball forward. I think we need more from that midfield pairing, and I don't think you'll get it from those two. So I think it needs to be changed for the Brentford game. But I think away to Chelsea, there's a time and a place for certain things. I think they did all right. I thought they both had a decent game. But I agree with you that around that time, 5 minutes before Irving got subbed, he was really struggling. There was a couple of really sloppy balls in there. And it was a good yellow card to take, but he had to take a yellow card and bring down Cole Palmer. So I actually am in agreement with you. I think just the goal from Chelsea was coming. I thought Neto changed the game completely. I thought he was the best player on the pitch on Monday night. He only played half an hour or whatever it was. So okay, I can see. I'm not sure I was screaming for Rodriguez, but then saying that, I don't know who else.
There weren't a lot else. That was the problem, weren't it? There weren't a lot else.
That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm thinking about the alternative was Lewis Orford, but then he didn't. He did come on. I thought he struggled. I thought the game was just too much for him on Monday night. And the same with Ollie Scars. But I don't mind it. Just for those that aren't patrons and heard it in the player ratings, I don't mind them struggling. They'll learn from that, and that's the best way to get them ready for Premier League football is to chuck them in the deep end. Not watch them struggle, but teach them afterwards and say, this is what you've done wrong and this is what you can do better. Because I thought Scarl struggled when we played Brighton. I thought he got ripped apart. Then the next game he came out and he's far better. And I do think a large part of that would have been off the Brighton experience and getting coached afterwards to say, this is what you did wrong and this is how you eliminate that in the next fixture. Overall, though, against Chelsea, were you pleased with what you saw? Were you a bit disappointed? What was your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I was. I think again, Potter's had a really tough job, and I think with what he had available to him, and when you saw the lineup, I felt like he helped the team give a good account of ourselves. I think, yeah, Chelsea. There's arguments that they may have been. In fact, there's been a couple of scenarios where we said maybe the team was there for the taking, and we haven't, maybe been ambitious enough to. But I totally fully understand why he's making the decisions he is at the moment, and basically why he is playing the system that he is in the way that he is, because there are players out there who I think are not really first team Premier League players anymore, and they need cover and they could be exposed if you let them be, but he isn't allowing that to happen with the way that he's setting up. So that's really good. And so I'm really happy with what Potter's doing. I think he's got a really tough job that he's doing at the moment. And, I think he's put us out there and set us up that first half performance was absolutely superb. It was a hard worked, it was a real battled, and we took our chance when it came. And the fact that Bowen come back in was excellent. I've seen a few people knock Kudus. I can sort of understand knocking him for what he's providing to the team at the moment. I think he's had quite a few chances over the last few games and not put the ball in the back of the net when maybe he should have. I think there are times where I feel like he should have been more effective as a player. Yeah. But what I can't understand is this opinion of him at the moment that he's not putting enough in. I thought he was the hardest working player out there. I thought he was and if you look at, I know you send me the Y Scout report, you have a look at that, how many actions he had. He's by far the most involved player in the game. I thought he tracks back. I thought he works hard. I thought he really, really put in a proper shift, Kudus. And I was very surprised that there was criticism of how much he put into that football match, because I thought he really did try. Yeah, he might have been able to nick a goal when he was in front of the goal there and sort of awkwardly swiveled and sort of, there was a block from Tosin, which was a good block. And there are a few moments where I thought, well, you could maybe have done a bit better there. But I think he's working double hard personally. And I think the stats sort of reflect that. So surprised at that. Yeah, but overall, I thought we gave a decent enough account of ourselves. I think Potter's doing wonders with what he's got available to him. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what he can do as some of these players start creeping back, really.
Yeah, I agree with your evaluation of Kudus. I think he was a bit greedy at times and could be and should be better in possession of the ball. But in terms of his attitude, I've not got any complaints about him. Since I had, at the end of Lopetegui's reign, I had complaints about Kudus's application. I thought he gave up quite easily in a lot of games and looked disinterested for large periods, and he was becoming like almost like a 60-minute type player that you might as well just sub him off, because the last half hour he doesn't look too bothered. But since Potter's come in, I think his very first game, Villa away in the Cup, he was out the game in the second half, but there was obviously reasons for that, with Somerville going off injured, and then Potter sort of referred to it after the game by saying that he wasn't involved, but we could excuse him for it. But I felt like it was almost like a warning to Kudus, which is like, I've noticed that you weren't really working hard, and since then I've got no complaints. In fact, I can say that about pretty much. I'm trying to think if there's a player I wouldn't say that about under Potter so far, and I don't think there is. So it might just be the whole new manager thing, so it gives everybody a bit of a lift, and they're all trying to impress the new gaffer. But so far, I think pretty much every player's attitude has been spot on, and there's small things that I find really refreshing. Like after we got beat by Chelsea, entire team went over to the away fans, and Graham Potter's team themselves went over to the away fans and stuff like that. You commented about it after the Villa game about how everyone went over, and Soufal was there taking pictures, and Souček was giving his shirt and captain's armband to kids and stuff like that. And it felt like that connection was back that perhaps had been lacking so far this season. So I think every player's been switched on and putting in a shift, and I've been quite impressed by it, actually. And I feel like that goes a long way with fans, and that's why when we got beat by Chelsea, I feel like the reaction has been quite positive, because A, you can see what we're trying to do tactically. B, it was a little bit of bad luck that done us in the end with the deflected cross, and the first goal shouldn't have stood. And then C, because all the players are given 100% throughout 90 minutes, that's all right. As long as they're doing that, it feels like that's enough for me. It isn't always. I think if we were to go winning 8 games in a row and they're all still given 100%, I think by the 8th game, we're all sitting here going, hang on a minute, this player's not that good enough, and that player's not good enough. But I think attitude does go a long way for football fans. We say it's a West Ham thing. I'd imagine most teams are the same. They see their players given 100% for the badge, they're all right with it. But I certainly feel like we're getting that under Potter, and that's what's given me. I'm already looking forward to the Brentford game. Earlier this season, when there was an international break, I was kind of glad, to be honest. I thought, oh, thank God. Do I have to watch this next weekend? I've got a break. But now we're not playing this weekend because of the FA Cup. I'm actually a bit gutted. I'm like, I'm going to miss West Ham this week. The FA Cup games are on. And I don't know, I feel like the first half of the season, Frankie, I was using other football matches as my football fix more than when I was watching West Ham games, but it was the other ones I was enjoying more. Whereas now, I'm even debating not watching football this weekend. I'm enjoying West Ham enough now that I'm like, I don't need to watch football. I'll watch the football tonight and tomorrow because it's the semi-finals, and I'll be rooting for Liverpool and Newcastle in both games. But this weekend, I don't know, might not watch any. Might just take the weekend off, watch no football. Probably not. I don't have any other hobbies. I don't know what else I'll do instead. Just sit here staring into space, not know what to do. But my point is, I'm enjoying it again. I think a lot of it's to do with the player's application. A lot of it's to do with Potter's tactics, but also I think Graham Potter's quite likable. You sent me a video, and I've not watched it, right? But what did you send it to me for? Was it a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it was Graham Potter, and the cameras were rolling before he knew, when he was doing his interview at Chelsea, and he walks into the press room and he sits down and he mutters under his breath, "Oh, I haven't missed this place." And then he says something about hellfire or something like that. So he was really, I don't know. I'm not sure Potter's this saint and lovely man that we all think he is. He's definitely got another side to him, which come out on the camera there. Look, I'm not saying that I'm thinking that he's not a nice man to have involved with our football club. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying he gives this impression that he's this really nice man who's, pretty calm and pretty calculated, and he thinks about all this psychological stuff and blah, 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 blah. Well, he's definitely got a bit of another side to him as well. So
I don't mind it though. I remember at Brighton, they got booed off. I think they drew their 7th game in a row or something like that. It might have even been against us. I'm not sure, but he got booed off, and he got asked about the booing, and because at the time they were like 8th, 9th, or 10th in the Premier League, and obviously they were on for the record finish, and obviously that's been broken since Potter left. But at the time, it was going to be the record finish, and Potter said, "Well, maybe I need to go and do my research of the history, because I thought this was as good as it's been for Brighton fans," or something like that. And he very much took a swing at the Brighton fan base there and then as well in an interview. So he does have that spiky side to him. We haven't seen it much yet, but I think we'll see it sometimes over the course of his tenure at West Ham. But
I think we'd be a little bit less accepting than the Brighton fans if he wants to play those games. That doesn't go down very well with us. So I'd advise him strongly not to take that stance if things do get a little bit tough at any time and we start to have a little grumble like we do. That's not the best way to approach it with us, I don't think.
Anyway, myself and Frankie next week, we're going to be do a podcast, but it's going to be dictated by yourselves, the people listening and watching right now. So you've got any questions for the podcast, get them in. I will do a community post later on in the week or early next week to get your questions. But you've got any questions for myself and Frankie, any topics you want us to discuss, get them into the comments below and we'll pick them up next week. And if you only want West Ham chat, this is where you disappear. But thank you very much for joining us. Do drop a like on the video and Sky Ham chat. But Frankie, before we go, you got an update on are you still on a 0% win rate? Which
I am. We haven't played since. So it was called off again last week. We've got a double cup game this weekend, though. We've got 2 back-to-back cup matches. So a bit full on. But I've been active in the transfer window, Geo. West Ham might not have been, but I have. We've signed the midfield maestro from Mexico, Jacinto. He is absolutely superb. He strikes a ball as hard as I do, Gio. He's very, very good. And we've also signed another player called Sebastian, who is unbelievable right wing back. He is just up and down, skillful, reads the game well. He's superb. So, yeah, I've been a busy boy trying to get some troops in.
So is it 2 different cup competitions, or is it like a group stage?
Both the same. It's called the FA Silver Vase. It's because the cup game was called off last week. We've got a double header this week to fit the games in. So yeah.
So is it a group phase then? Is there only 3 teams in a group? How does it work?
So there's 3 teams. So if I'm on it, I'm going to be completely honest now. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but basically whoever gets the most points from these, we're going to play 2 fixtures, there's 3 teams, then whoever gets the most points, if we're equal on points and equal on goals at the end of the fixtures that are going to be played, they roll into extra time. So we have to play more minutes against the team that we're level with. A committee member has to come over and be a witness to what happens in that extra time. And then whoever wins that extra time will progress into the next round. So it's very, very complicated and unnecessarily, I think.
Yeah, you thought the new Champions League format was a bit complicated. Seems pretty straightforward when compared to. I just hope if Graham Potter's asked about the FA Cup, he's knows the rules a bit more than you do.
I've got a sheet, mate. I've read it about 10 times, and I'm still a bit like, what is going on here? So all fun and games.
Love it. Well, I look forward to an update next week. Hopefully, you'll have a 66% win rate this time next week, winning both games, and that's still at the 0%. But thank you very much for joining us, Frankie. Thank you as always. I look forward to catching up with you next week. And whatever you're up to this weekend with no West Ham, I hope you have a lovely one, whatever you're doing. And don't be shy, let us know. Drop a like on the video, subscribe, you have a chat with myself and Frankie. Catch you in a bit.